All right. Good morning, everybody. Today I've got a special episode for you because this is going to be raw. I've got no introduction today, no fancy music, no outro. I'm just here, honestly, at the hotel because I went on vacation this last week for my anniversary, my 10th year anniversary. It's actually our 11th anniversary coming up, but we did it this year. And on the way back home from our trip, it was 4th of July, exactly. We were driving home, again, unedited here. We were driving home, and our car made this funny sound, but it wasn't very loud. It was just like this little funny sound, like almost like air was sucking through the front, or it was a little rattling. And I thought, it's probably not much to get excited about. We pulled over and checked it out at lunch, called my brother. He did a digital diagnostic for us, which of course you can't really do anything. And we decided, let's just keep driving. 10 minutes down the road, our car totally broke down. Something broke, and it sounded not that great. And then our coolant said, your coolant's hot, and all these lights started going on. So we had to stop on the side of the freeway, and that was that. So we got stuck for a couple of days. Since nothing is open, we just decided to hang out 5 hours from home at a hotel for 2 days. So more on that later. But it's been an adventure, and because of that, I've got a podcast for you today, but it's from, honestly, the exercise room in the hotel with my iPhone headphones. So we've got unedited, we've got this great quality of sound, I'm sure, but I just thought I'd record it and get it out there for you because that would be fun. And I'm just going to try to record all week. All the podcasts for this week, this morning as well, so we'll see how that goes. But today's topic is, it isn't all or nothing, because I went back to work doing my fitness instructing now that the gym's open a little bit more, and I was sharing with my people in the class about that documentary, The Gamechangers, because I really love it. It's just done so well. They tell a couple stories really well, and they kind of show this before and after of the plant-based diet. Again, the people on there aren't doing the plant-based diet perfectly as far as I am concerned, but they see amazing results. The athletes are getting amazing results as far as performance and energy level. Arnold Schwarzenegger makes an appearance in that one, so it's pretty cool. It's really cool and pretty fun. And they've got this really strong man who picks up a car. It's just really cool. So I was sharing about this documentary, and what happened is what I get a lot whenever I talk about transitioning to a plant-based diet or giving up sugar or making healthy changes. A lot of people say, man, I just don't think I can do that. Or I don't think I can do it 100%. That just sounds too hard, right? And a reason that a lot of doctors aren't sharing more about the holistic natural approach is because they think it's too radical. People aren't going to do this. It's too much of a change. And I want to suggest that it's going to be worth it. No matter what step you take is totally worth it. It's not all or nothing. You don't have to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour in one day. And because of that, I just wanted to share with you my journey, because a lot of times, just like we were saying on a couple podcasts ago, it's a journey, not a destination. So it isn't all or nothing. You don't have to go from start to finish all at the same time. And I wanted to share my journey with you with food and with mental health briefly today, to show you that it's been a journey for me too, and I want you to see the benefits that I got with every single step, so that no matter what step you take, you're going to see amazing results, and then you just keep taking the next step as you're ready for it. So I think my journey maybe started, in high school, obviously, whenever I found out that I couldn't eat wheat, right? When I found out that I had a gluten sensitivity way back in the day before that was a cool thing. And I remember in high school, just feeling like trash, of course, and I was really low energy. I had terrible stomach cramps all the time. It felt like somebody was stabbing me in the gut every time I ate food. So obviously coming from that position, any transition was going to be great. But from there, I just started by getting rid of gluten, which back then meant that I got rid of most processed foods as well, because there weren't a whole lot of gluten-free things. But I was still eating dairy. I was still eating chips. I remember some desperate times whenever I was down to like 5 foods or having some allergy issues, I was eating potatoes, and she didn't tell me I couldn't eat sugar. So I made like this funnel cake out of potato starch and water, and then just doused it with powdered sugar. I remember eating that. So like I definitely was not perfect. So she didn't tell me oil, I guess, either. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking. But anyways, that's an aside. But the point is, I was feeling terrible, and so I just switched to gluten-free, which meant I started eating a lot more whole foods as well. So I went basically on a gluten-free whole food diet, which people say is a huge step, and it is. But I did that, and of course my energy came back a little bit, and I didn't have such terrible cramping, which was amazing. After that, I still had trouble with iron deficiency and other things, so my energy was still not that great. Again, I think I told you I've had brain fog, and at one point I didn't think I was going to have kids because I was having more and more allergies. But overall, I was able, from high school to middle of college, I was able to feel pretty great. I didn't have those major cramps. I had the energy that I needed, and I felt good enough to just go throughout my day as usual. And then, so that was a big shift for me, right? I made that change, gluten-free. I felt a lot better. Then, as I went forward, I realized eventually that I needed to have clear water, right? I got this water machine, and I started drinking clear water. That made a huge difference. I got rid of my acid reflux medication because I started drinking clear water and doing allergy treatments. So that was a huge benefit for me. Then I found the plant-based diet, and I started eating that. And phew, that is when my energy finally came back. I think I lost 10 pounds that first time I went plant-based. And I was eating whole foods. I started eating more plants. I gave up meat because I decided I didn't really like to cook it anyway. But I was still eating dairy. I was still eating sugar and processed foods for the most part. But most of my diet was a lot of green vegetables, a lot of raw vegetables, and I gave up meat. And because of that, I had so much more energy. I felt amazing, better than I did in high school, and I lost that 10 pounds, so I looked better than I did in high school. My skin finally started clearing up because I had acne really, really, really bad, which I think I'm going to talk about in the next episode, or next couple episodes. And so again, a huge shift whenever I just started eating more vegetables. Then eventually I gave up sugar. Wow, that was a hard one. Well, I think first I gave up dairy. So I had kids, and when I was nursing them, they just did not respond well to dairy, so I finally gave that up, and that was another huge shift. It made a difference. But I think the hardest part of all of these is the confidence. Like we're saying, I just don't think I can do it. And the reason that you don't think you can do it is because it feels, what we talked about before with addiction, food addictions and things like that, it feels like you need it. It feels like there's some mental parts. It's not the physical part. That's hard. Like, you can figure that out. You can go get some recipe books. You can learn how to cook and get it all figured out. The physical part isn't that hard. It's not that hard physically to sit there and eat something different than your friends. Or it's not that hard to go to an event like a birthday party or something and sit there and eat something else. Physically, that's not that hard to do, right? I think we are all clear on that. The hard part is the mental part, right? So with each of these changes that I was able to make, I felt a lot better. Just the small steps, one at a time. It's been a journey for me. I gave up dairy eventually. I felt a lot better. I gave up sugar. My brain fog completely cleared after that. And I gave up oil mostly, and now my skin's feeling a lot better, right? But it was a journey, and as I was ready, I took the next step. So the hardest part again was the mental part, being ready mentally for that next step, learning, and what helped me the most was to learn about it, right? Watching those movies like the Gamechangers, that helped me see the benefits of it and what it's doing inside my body, so that I could find the motivation and say, hey, it's worth it. So I wanted to go over some of those benefits before we move on. I had mentioned mental clarity, energy is amazing. I get up and I just bounce out of bed in the morning. Like I've been telling you, I've been getting up at 4 in the mornings. I bounce out of bed, honestly, totally refreshed. I have more strength and energy than I did in high school and college. I lost weight. My skin feels so much better. Every time I make a shift towards better eating, my skin just feels like baby soft. You can just see this huge shift in your skin. And hold on. Sorry, I had to pause because my recording looked like it was not working. Okay, so then longevity, like there's a lot of things that I can't measure right now, but I know from research and statistics that I'm going to live a lot longer. I know that I don't get sick as often as I used to when I was a kid. I was sick all the time. I remember my teacher telling me, like, making a comment about it whenever I was in first grade, that I was just the kid that was sick all the time. But now I never get sick. I get sick once a year, maybe, and it's just not as bad as everybody else's stuff. So I can tell that I feel better. I never get sick. I have so much mental clarity, and I'm able to focus and do all the things that I want and really enjoy my life, because that's the point, right? So what are some of the mental shifts that need to take place in order for you to make the physical shifts actually happen? And that's a journey too, right? That's the reason that this is all a journey. So I think some of the mental shifts that have to take place is, number one, that this works, right? You got to know that the shift that you're about to make is going to make a difference. I've got to know that eating more vegetables is really going to make a difference for me in order to want to eat more vegetables, because at first it might not taste very good, right? So I would suggest, again, watching the Gamechangers movie or getting a great book like Eat to Live by Dr. Furhman or How Not to Die by Dr. Gregor. He's got a new one called How Not to Diet, which is really interesting. I'm really wanting to read that one about losing weight and just different herbs and things that might help you as well. So that one sounds really cool to me. But just there's tons of great books out there. I would look for plant-based books and read up on it and just keep reading to maintain your motivation. Opening my emails every day to get some encouragement as far as mental encouragement, right? So you just fill your head with some great stuff, motivational information that's going to help you remember that the shift that you're making is worth it. Just reading people's stuff on social media. Sometimes I go to those plant-based groups and I read different success stories on there, so that's kind of nice. It's mixed on there sometimes, but just going somewhere to read some success stories as well has been really good. So just knowing that it's going to be worth it, that it's actually going to make a difference in your life. I think number 2 is So I think knowing that it's worth it. Number 2 is just having hope that you can make this shift, that it's not that hard physically, that you can figure it out, right? So number 1 is worth it. Number 2 would be that this is totally possible. It's doable. It's figure outable. That you can do it, right? So after you've figured out that it's worth it and taken that aside, saying, hey, this is going to make a difference, maybe you could just say, hey, let's try it and see if it makes a difference, right? It looks like it's worth it. That could be a place to go to first. Let's try it and figure it out. Then it is possible. It is doable. And where can I go to find the answers, right? So opening up that it is possible, is doable, is huge. And then I think the last shift too is something like, I'm not going to miss out. I think that's the biggest one, because a lot of times we realize that it's worth it. We know that it's doable. We get on the journey. We feel the results. That's great. But then you go to those parties or you go on vacation, which I'm currently on, and other people are eating things that look delicious, so you kind of forget over and over again. You'll fall so many times. So I think the last mental change that needs to happen is knowing that you're not missing out, like truly realizing that eating that stuff isn't going to be beneficial for you in the long run. And there's a lot of little mind thoughts. There's a lot of little different thoughts that are going on with that one. A lot of times I see my kids and I think, oh, I need a reward, or because I spent all day with my kids, right? Or so that's one of them. Or other people are eating it, so I don't want to miss out. That's another one. Or I don't want to offend anyone by not eating this, right? So those are a lot of little thoughts that you're having. But in the end, I think it comes down to feeling like you're not missing out, right? You're not missing out on life by eating a different way, which I think is definitely true. I'm just going to give you an example. So I just went on vacation and I had those same thoughts, right? I planned yummy food and I went to the farmer's market, got some great fruit. I was so excited about it. We had lots of great salads. We were getting lots of exercise, doing outdoor activities. So that was super fun. But we still had, my husband wanted to get some cookies and various treats, which mostly I did not partake in because for me, it's not really worth it. It gives me heartburn and I know that my skin's going to be gross. But after a few days, I usually cave and I had some cookies and I had a couple handfuls of chips. Let me try to think what else. Oh, I tried that Impossible Burger, which is so greasy, but it is delicious, but also very greasy. So there were times whenever during this trip that I was like, it's not worth it. I want to eat those foods. I'm on vacation, right? I need a reward. I'm on vacation. I want to do this thing, which is totally fine. But I think on reflection, I think honestly, it didn't make the trip much more exciting, right? It tastes good in the moment, but by the end of the week, my acne started to break out again because I was eating greasy foods and foods that I don't normally eat. And because of that, I start to feel really self-conscious and it hurts. Physically, it hurts. And it's just not fun. And then I start to get sad about not, letting myself down, not listening to myself, things like that. So I know that in the end, I'm not really missing out on anything by not eating those things. So I miss out in the moment on the stuff that tastes good, but in the end, I can maintain my mental clarity, I maintain my energy, and my love for and respect for myself. So I'm feeling like this is a little bit rambly today, so hope you guys are getting what you can out of this. But I just want to go back to the ideal. So let's say that the ideal is, I read the book, The Blue Zones, several months ago, and it was talking about the 8 different things. They had gone through I'm telling you, the there's a man, Dan Beuttner, and he was on a team with National Geographic going to these different zones of the earth that they were calling blue zones, where people live to be the longest. So there's a large amount of people that live to be over 100. They went to those zones of the earth and just studied the people. What are their habits? What are they eating? To try to figure out some secrets of longevity. So they come up with 8 different things. So I guess I would say, as far as scientific research goes, maybe that's the best knowledge that we have, and I thought it was a really great summary of different things that we could do in our lives in order to live the best life and the longest. So a lot of the things that they talk about, I'm not going to list all 8 of them, but some of them were just social interaction, so daily social interaction and having a group of people. I think religious affiliation was on there too, having some kind of connection with God as well. And being able to relax was another one. Just they saw that specifically in one culture that the men ended up living way longer than the women because the women tend to be more stressed in that culture, is what they thought. Plenty of exercise and walking. I mean, most of these people were just walking a lot, so it doesn't have to be anything super major athletic sort of exercise that we often think about, but it can just be some good vigorous walking every day. And then the food was a huge thing, right? In each of these cultures, they had a lot of whole foods, no processed foods, mostly plant-based. So no processed foods means little to no salt, no sugar, no sodas, and not a lot of oils, right? So I think for me, that's like the ideal, right? The ideal would be that I get up every morning at 4 a.m., right, bright and early, and I'd exercise. I'd have perfectly balanced life where I'm eating only whole foods from my own garden. I'm drinking fresh water, right? And I'm not eating processed foods. I have plenty of time to relax, and I'm taking care of my mental health, my religious connection with God or the universe is totally strong, right? And I have social connections that are really strong as well, right? That would be like the ideal if I could live that way. Every day would be healthy and feeling amazing. But the truth is that our modern culture does not tend that way. So I think that those of us who are trying to be healthy, it's a big deal, and no matter which step that you take in that direction is a big deal. It's huge. I think it is difficult. It means that you've got to have a lot of courage. It means that you've got to have a lot of dedication in order to remember that it's worth it and to work through the mental part. And I just want to give you encouragement that it is worth it and tell you that you are an amazing warrior of a person if you keep moving towards the healthier lifestyle, because it's easy to just stay with the flow and do what everybody else is doing. That's the easy part. It doesn't require you to get out of your comfort zone or to say no to things that everybody else is doing, right? And if you want to keep living that way, that's totally fine, and that's totally your choice, and no judgment here. That's what you want to do, right? But if you keep living that way, you're going to get everybody else's results. America is getting fatter. We're getting more tired. We're having less energy. We're having major chronic diseases. I was just on vacation. I was telling my husband, this is terrible, but I think when we go on vacation and I see a lot of different people, he said, what are you thinking one day? And I'm like, I know this sounds bad, but I think about people who are overweight a lot. Like I saw this 8-year-old walk by who was overweight, and he was honestly just waddling by, and it looks so uncomfortable to me and so sad, especially in children. And it's not that I'm judging you for your size. That's not at all what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking as a health coach is, man, I wish I could help all of these people. I wish I could show them that there is a more energetic, better way to live, and that it's not too hard, that it's totally possible. And if more of us are courageous and take those steps forward, starting that journey, the more of us there will be to support each other, and the more that we can shift this culture. And you don't have to be uncomfortable. You don't have to deal with arthritis and diabetes and all of these things. You don't have to be overweight, right? You have more control over it than you think, and you can make that shift one step at a time. So my tip for today, at the end of today's podcast, different, interesting podcast, is that just think of what it is that you want to do, right? Whenever I coach someone, we only have at maximum 1 hour per week that I talk to them. I don't have time to hold their hand all throughout their lives. I don't have time to change them or to teach them everything that they ever need to know. But whenever I coach someone, we just start to build their awareness and their desire. And they begin to start reading stuff on their own. They begin to pay attention to what it is that they're eating. And through that process, they have their own internal motivation starts to grow. Because as you take that first step and you see that it's great and you see that you can do it, then your confidence starts to grow and you take the next step and the next step and the next step. So it's not important that you do it all right now. I just want you to think today, what is it that you want to do? What step are you ready for today? And write it down and just take that step this week. Maybe the step you're ready for today is to go watch the Gamechangers or to go read a book, okay? That's the perfect step. Or maybe your step is to start paying attention to how you feel when you eat stuff. Or maybe your step is to add a serving of vegetables and eat that first every meal. So what is it that is your first step that you're going to take closer to your ultimate destination, which is health and happiness? And that's all that I've got for you today. I don't have a fancy outro, but if you love this episode, go ahead and share it with a friend. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow for another interesting episode in the hotel room. Okay? But have a fabulous week, and I'll talk to you very soon.